Thank you, Carlos. Well, I know you guys are going to stick around because after me, I think Carlos and Sue are going to answer all your questions. The last time I was here at the short course, I made a prophetic statement, and I said that the department was changing, and 161 was going to be a toll road. So a lot of the things, and back then, everything was going towards toll roads and managed lanes, and sure enough, within a year, 161 became a toll road. And really a lot of our projects that we do at the Dallas District consist of managed lanes, express lanes, HOVs, things like that. So things are changing. And the reason I bring that up is because part of my presentation, we are entering a huge monumental change as far as the environmental process is concerned. And just to make sure that all of you guys are going to stay here after my presentation, I will make one more prophetic prediction after my presentation. And to give you a hint, it'll be concerning ENV. So it's good. All right, a lot of the things I'm going to talk about is obviously the categorical exclusion, because a lot of things have changed since the last time that actually Dallas District was doing CEs. And I want to say that 90%, and actually I think at the EC conference in Galveston, I think the percentage was more like 98% of all projects are categorical exclusions and below. And in the old days, basically what that consisted of is we did a lot of blanket categorical exclusions, PCEs, CEs, typically anything non-capacity. And then obviously, as a refresher, categorical exclusions are really classes of actions that individually or cumulatively do not have any significant socioeconomic environmental impacts. And then obviously the next level is the environmental assessments, which we do to make sure there is a finding of no significant impact, that the project's not elevated to an EIS. And obviously the most complex environmental document project type is an EIS, which is you've got substantial environmental impacts and potential controversy. Now, with the changes in the MOU, right now we're doing the new way, which is basically there's C-list and D-list projects. And there's 21 categories 21 project types for C-list. Basically, you can think of those projects as seal coats, full depth repair, etc. A lot of our old bridge type projects, PCEs, are really now D3 projects, which is basically bridge replacements. So I'm going to focus a lot about like I said, environmental documentation concerning categorical exclusions. Now, one of the biggest changes as far as the CMOU is concerned is that we no longer do a formal document. And I think a lot of that really comes down, I want to commend ENV and their staff, Carlos and his staff, because in the old days we used to do environmental documents for CEs. Now we're really getting away from that. We're doing a CE determination form. A lot of things that ENV has done has streamlined the process. We also have a Section 4F streamlined process. And by the way, for some of you that haven't looked at the environmental toolkits, they're pretty well to replace the SOUs, SOPs. They're an awesome tool as far as what you need to do on the environmental process. Now, some of the things that I'm going to mention as far as what the Dallas District is doing, I would encourage everybody to do the same. But before I go on, I want to find out from our audience, because I probably don't recognize 2/3 of you. I want to know who in here actually prepares or reviews environmental documents. Raise your hand. Okay. Do I have any, now that includes obviously TxDOT staff, consultants, whoever. And is there anybody here that's a TPND or DE? Raise your hand. Okay. All right. The portion I'm going to talk about as far as categorical exclusions, I'm going to really emphasize, let's say the easiest one, not the easiest one, but the bridge replacements. What Dallas District does is we typically don't start our environmental process until I actually look at 30% PSNE. And some of the Cat 1 projects, we actually do look at 60% PSNE. And why is it that we do that? Well, number one reason is that, quite honestly, I've been in Dallas District for a long time, and I got tired of getting burned by the by looking at the 95% plans and saying, oh, by the way, you need a drainage easement, you need a construction easement, and what does that do? That opens up the environmental process again. I got to do a reval. So, and then in the meantime, our wonderful D saying, oh, by the way, I know you've got to make these changes, and the letting's not going to change. So here, go ahead and get it done. So I'm sure nobody's been in that position before. So we've decided that for bridge replacements, I do have to have the 30% PSNE. Why? And the main reason is that at 30% PSNE, you're going to have sequence of work, you're going to have your TCP, you're going to have your bridge layout, you're going to have your cross sections, you're going to have your hydraulics. So pretty well we'll make a determination exactly what type of project it is and how much right-of-way you're going to get. Because as I alluded to, a lot of the times when we do get a project, changes do occur as far as getting additional construction easements or drainage easements. By the way, I have our wonderful DE, and I see Kelly Selman there, so I really got to be careful what I'm saying here. All right. So if I start shaking a little bit, you know why. All right, so I think that is the biggest thing that we do in Dallas District is you got to get your 30% PSNE plans. Now, also, my job is to really look at the 2-year letting at a time because those are the most critical projects. So I do verify with our programming section, make sure that I look at every project that's listed on that plan. Because based on that, we assign people to do the work. And number one thing that I require people that are NEPA writers is you got to go out and look at the project. I mean, some of these things I'm going to say here, obviously, very simple, but I think to be great, you got to do simple things over and over, and you got to do them right. Now, one of the things that ENV has done a really outstanding job, and I'm going to brag a lot about ENV, some of the tools and methods that they've implemented. One is that, for some of you that don't know, we do use ECO's Environmental Compliance Oversight System, which is our official file of record for all environmental work. And I think what's really good about that is when we do get a project, we do our scoping up front. And how many years have we heard that you really got to look at your, do your scoping up front so you can identify the issues, assign the resources, and make sure that you do everything early enough so that when it comes time to letting, you're not going to have any surprises and any delays. So that is huge, and I will say Dallas District has been a little reluctant because we like to do paper copies, but Carlos, you should be happy that we are doing electronic scoping right now. And I think Carrie's happy too. So that is the key successful component as far as ECOs. You got to do your scoping up front. Now, for Dallas District, we do have our key issues are obviously always going to be water, bio, noise. So we do have environmental scientists that are subject matter experts, and George Reeves is noise, Jay McCurley's water. Robert Hall is retired, so we do have another person doing bio. So what we have those subject matter experts do, immediately they got to go up front, look at the project, and obviously prepare tech reports. Also, what we do up front on categorical exclusion projects is we do, since the Dallas District doesn't have the capability to do ARC and historic, we do rely a lot on ENV subject matter experts in that area. And by the way, I'll also say that I think we're always going to need ENV. I made that bet 5 years ago with Lane. He said ENV is not going to be around. Well, I said, look, we're always going to need ENV because, one, we don't have ARC, we don't have historic, we need your hazmat experts. And as far as I'm concerned, as long as legislature's in Austin, you got to have that liaison from Austin to continually talk to our legislatures, and also they got to be able to do the biggest, most important thing, in my opinion, is do the laws, and also provide guidance to the district. Now, also Dallas District, all of our projects on bridges are tested for LBP, lead-based paint, and asbestos. So moving right along, we do a desktop search. Also, if there's public involvement on bridges, we do a meeting with affected property owners. And it's very important that for you, not just for any project, but really for open records, that we do create a project file. And as far as our type of projects, C-list type projects are always going to be done by the NEPA writer. You don't have to have peer review, so they actually do it. Now, even though it's not required at my level, I do check every C-list project because I want to make sure that we do have the proper documentation. we made the right NEPA classification. We have all the backup documentation, because one of the first lawsuits I've been involved in a long time ago, one of the statements was that you're, let's see, the judge specifically stated that you have conclusive statements without backup documentation. So to me, I'm a freak about, you got to have the right documentation to make the right decision. Most of you that don't know NEPA, I mean, most of you do know that NEPA is mainly procedural. So as long as you follow the process, you can still make the wrong decision. As long as I have the backup data, I can make the wrong decision and I'll still win in the lawsuit. But obviously we want to make the right decision. I don't want you thinking that I'm just following a process, okay? And the good news is that I have John over me on my left, so if I get long-winded, he's going to start moving over towards me, telling me that my time's running out. All right. Now, the key thing on delisted project, like bridge replacements. The NEPA writer prepares the document. Of course, we have the bridge layout. Everything's done. Now, the key thing on that is that I will do the second peer review on that one. So you have, basically that one has 3 levels of quality control. The NEPA writer writes it. I'll check it. And obviously the district engineer, like I said, we have a D in the back. They're the ones that are going to sign it. So that way, once everything's signed, I have all the documentation uploaded in ECOS, boom, you're done. So one of my suggestions, since Carlos is here, is that perhaps our D is extremely busy with his time and other projects, is that maybe that can be delegated eventually to TP&D level. Even though Bill's very quick about getting done extremely quickly. He's probably one of the best, most knowledgeable Ds. All right. Now, some of the things that we use, again, I mentioned project file documentation. Now, some of the things that we've obviously implemented, you know, the 30, 60, 95% review, I would recommend everybody, you got to do that. Obviously, the second thing that we like to do is we do have a project file checklist, and I got to give credit to Carrie, because that is her checklist that we used when the rec centers were around. Now, whether the rec centers were a good or bad idea, I'll leave that up to you. That's an item of side discussion. But pretty well what happened is that Carrie used to review all our PCE. She'd make a project file documentation. We would make sure that we had that. So what I did is that for our projects is we took that list, because I'm the type of person that I like to look at everything at one file. I mean, you print it out, you look at it. ECOS, for some of you that don't know, is that you can have various sections. You can do the forms, tasks, etc. Everything's uploaded, for example, air, noise, bio, etc. You can upload it in that section and you have it up there. Now, on our projects, if I get an FHWA audit, and by the way, I welcome audits by anybody at any time for full transparency, is that you can always go to ECOS and look at a project file, and you can pull up all the information that you need on that project. Now, granted, it may be about 200 or 300 pages, but it'll be at one spot. You don't have to go to various sections. And what we did to improvise Carrie's list is that what we have done is, as part of that project file documentation, we've added that you have the project scope, you have all the backup information that you need for arc, historic, bio, whatever the issue is, public involvement. Then as a result of that, once we get environmental clearance, we also have after all that is done, we have the NEPA cleared screen, and we also have the EPIC sheet. And the EPIC sheet is going to have all your environmental permits, issues, commitments that were done as a result of that project analysis and documentation. Then, what Dallas District has done is we've married the EMS process, Environmental Management System process, with the ECOS. And as a result of that, once I have everything down through the EPIC sheet, we submit all the issues and mitigations and commitments in what's called the advanced APD stage gate checklist, because that goes to the designer, and now they have a full summary of everything. They've got the EPIC sheet that they put in their PS&E sheet. They have the APD stage gate checklist that they know everything that they have to incorporate into their PS&E plans. I know you can't read this, but these are the categories. Like I said, we do give credit to Carrie when she was with the rec center and the checklist that she had, because it really facilitates the process, and you have all the background information that you need to do the right documentation, so that you don't get a statement if you get in a lawsuit. Dallas District will never get a statement from a judge, as long as I'm there, that we have conclusive statements without background documentation. Because what we ended up on that project, we went back and redid everything and make sure all the documentation was there, and eventually the lawsuit was cleared. Now, this is a blank checklist, but obviously everything is signed at the end. And again, the key components I want to emphasize on that is that you have the environmental background documentation, you have the epic sheet, clearance date, and you have the advanced to PS&E stage gate checklist. So that if anybody comes to our district and wants to audit me, they can go to ECOS, go to that one area and pull up all the information. Now, for our C-list and D-list project, you got to have something to make a decision. In the old days when Michelle Conkle was at ENV, we used to clear like 100 to 120 projects a month. And granted, they were all BCEs. A lot of those were traffic signals, illumination, signing, etc. But as a minimum, what you're going to see on Dallas projects when you go to ECOS is we do talk to the designer. So I'm going to get either 30% PS&E, I'm going to get the PDF file of really what are they doing on that project, because I can't tell you how many times, for example, you just have a project within existing right-of-way and then you find out that there's going to be a turning lane added and also there's going to be minor right-of-way. Well, obviously, when you add right-of-way, permanent right-of-way, now I can't use the C22 list project, which is within your right-of-way for transportation use. So that elevates it to a D project. All right, so having gone through this process, again, documentation. I think Sue said many times, if you don't have a documentation for it, guess what? It hasn't been done. So, all right, so after the project is environmentally cleared, and I'm talking about D projects, Bill Hale signs it. What we try to do now is we take it another step, is that I will send out an email saying that the project has been environmentally cleared. In that email, and by the way, that email will go to the actual designer, not their supervisor, because at my level, I'm dealing to the actual people that are actually going to be doing the PS&E plans, because I want to establish the fact that, hey, we've done this project, you have environmental clearance, you have the epic sheet, you have the APD stage gate checklist. I will send you the email with all these attachments. You start working on your design. As you're working on your design, whatever the issue is on that epic sheet, we will send the appropriate person to talk to the designer so that they know exactly what they have to incorporate in their plans. And again, we'll take the epic form with all the environmental permits, issues, commitments. We will actually prepare the PS&E epic sheet for the designer. And we will go talk to them and say, hey, when you do this design, when you take it from a 30% level to 60 and 95, you have to make sure that you incorporate these elements into your PS&E. And by the way, I do trust you, but I'm going to verify, because when that designer completes the 60% PS&E plans, it'll go through our office, because what we'll do is we'll check to make sure that the epic commitments that we gave you are part of your 60% PS&E. And if they're not, we'll have conversation and we'll talk and whatever. But bottom line is that you've heard many times is that you got to have that communication. We just don't get environmental clearance, pass it on to the designer and say, by the way, we're done, you do the rest. No, I want to make sure that those elements were incorporated into your PS&E. We check the 30, 60, 95, and we actually check it all the way up to a letter of authority, so that we know that the commitments that we started on this project sometimes 2 years ago are really incorporated into your PS&E. So that email is very important. That contact is very important, because it'll go, like I said, to the actual designer that is listed on P6. And don't get me started on P6, but that's a separate topic, okay? That'll be item for another day. Now, also what we have as part of our files, if you look at this, I like everything green in ECO, so that means that all the coordination has been completed. Because I want, even though a project is environmentally cleared, unless it has all the items closed out, we will go back, and a lot of times we'll coordinate with the NV, make sure that the project has been closed out properly. Because again, my thing is I'm always thinking with the end in mind, is that I'm going to have that wonderful FHWA representative come into our office and auditing us, and I want to be able to present everything correctly. All right, again, this is just the C determination form, which I alluded to earlier, has really simplified the process tremendously. And again, that's your example of, I know you can't read it, but that's the APD stage gate checklist. And by the way, I want to mention that as we submit that APD stage gate checklist to the designer, when we do review the 60-95% plans, not only do we review the APD stage gate checklist, but somebody from our staff that actually wrote the document is going to check the what? He's going to check the PS&E stage gate checklist. So we'll coordinate with the designer, make sure that the PS&E stage gate checklist has been completed properly. So that's all part of the PS&E package. So really, I think one of the key things that I know that they haven't been recognized, but I think what the EMS team did under ENV has been tremendous, is that has really improved the overall process between all sections, from planning to environmental to design to construction and even on to maintenance. So I think that's a huge success for the department implementing the EMS, and one of the big things out of the EMS obviously has been the stage gate checklist and the epic sheet. So that's another kudos for ENV. And if you can read this, you probably won't need glasses for 20 years. But again, the big emphasis is in the old days, we did environmental, but there was no form or mechanism to place those EPIC commitments in the PS&E sheets. As far as if you're a contractor, you got to go to the plans. If it's not in there, if it's not specific, in the old days we used to have very general EPIC sheet, but I think they've gotten a lot better. We have very specific information there. And just to walk you real through quickly, you can look at the EPIC sheet and you can tell which items or issues are really key, at least for our district and other district. On the left side, you're always going to have one of the biggest issues for our district, obviously water, and that comes through 4.2, construction general permit with your SW3P. And then on that left side, we have the 401 water quality certification and 404 issues on your permitting with the Corps. So those are our biggest issues, our district, and I'd probably say other districts too. Then in the middle of the portion, you get to cultural resources, you get to habitat, you get to threatened and endangered species. Obviously, we work with archaeologists, historians, and biologists. And then on the upper right, you can't read it, so I'm reading it for you. Hazmat is becoming a key issue for us, whether it's lead-based paint or ACM. And then obviously, as you go down, you've got the last thing is catch-all and all your miscellaneous items like other issues, which one of the biggest, obviously, for us, too, is also the noise walls. We do have a lot of, especially now I want to brag on my D here a little bit. He's outstanding innovator. If you guys I want everybody, your assignment is going to go drive IH-30 and you're going to see a wonderful, clear noise wall that was really would not have happened without the innovative thinking and cooperation and collaboration by our district engineer, Bill Hale. So thank you, Bill, on that one. All right, so in summary, we want to do things right the first time. We want to have the proper documentation so that when we get audited by anybody, it's all done right the first time. And again, the key successes has been, tools have been ECOs, because you do the scoping up front. And again, I encourage everybody, if you're a TP&D and district engineer, you gotta make sure that your environmental staff is reviewing the PS&E plans before they go to construction. So I'd recommend you definitely make that available to your EC, and I know a lot of the districts have 1 or 2 ECs, so I know I'm adding more work. But to me, I think when you do that, it's really going to help you and save a lot of time in the end. And again, I mentioned all bridges are tested for LBP and ACM. And marrying the EMS and ECOs, again, as part of our total project documentation, we're going to have all the background information. We're going to have the EPIC sheet and the APD stage gate checklist that is submitted to the designer. Designer does their work. They prepare the PS&E stage gate checklist. We check their work 30, 60, 95 before letter of authority. Everything is done. And then obviously when it goes to construction, there is now a construction stage gate checklist. If there are issues that occur during construction, we do have a great relationship. I don't see David Seago here, but through our construction, that if there are changes, they will notify us. Their DEQC, well, Chris is right there. He'll notify us, and we'll determine what type of documentation or if we need to do any reevaluation that needs to be done. So is this a faster, better, cheaper, easier process? That's the Dallas District motto. If you've been here 1 year or 50,000 years, if you make a recommendation to us and it's faster, better, cheaper, easier, we'll do it. If not, then we'll do our process. So obviously I won't get into this because I think it's time for Q&A, but it does save us a lot of time because I do want our core group of environmental scientists or engineers or whoever working on environmental projects, I really want them working all the time. And I want them working as fast and as efficient as possible. So, I don't know why I love this picture, but I always love that. If I do future presentations, I'll always include it part of here. So, are there any questions? All right, so my prophecy, I know y'all are dying to hear my prophecy before Carlos takes over. I will say that I'm thinking very clearly how to say this, okay? So, I think ENV and their staff, I see Carrie, Sue, Doug here. By the way, we do welcome self-assessments by Carrie. We love you, Carrie, because I know your self-assessments will always make us better. So I will say, with a lot of outstanding work that has been done by ENV, especially in the EMS area, and now I told Carlos when he said, you know, we're going to get full NEPA assignment. We got it on CEs and now EAs and EISs in the future. And obviously, if you're in a non-attainment area, we're still working with FHWA on the conformity and all that. But to try to accomplish everything in a year, to have a successful audit overall by really the whole department, I mean, it's an amazing feat. And now once we get the EAs and we get the next audit, I think FHWA is going to audit us twice a year, first 2 years, and once a year, last 3. My prophecy for next year. I know this is being recorded, so the video may go viral. So I will say that ENV will get one of the awards next year for the outstanding work they have done on the EMS and full NEPA assignment next year at the short course. So that's my prophecy, whether it's Carlos or some of his staff, because it will be overdue and it will be very much deserved. I know Sue, Doug, and Lisa's here, and Rodney's here, whatever. So that's my prophecy for next year. With all the outstanding work that you guys have done to bring the NEPA assignment to the district, that will deserve a reward. And then next year when you get that reward, you're going to come up in front of thousands of people and you're going to say, you know what? It doesn't get better than this. Thank you.